It was 3 in the morning when I was awoken by a loud bang coming from downstairs in the kitchen. I had assumed it was either my mother or sister, since they're usually the ones eating this late, but I also remembered they were out camping. I ignored it and went back to sleep. 10 minutes later, I heard the same banging noises, but this time, it was coming from outside my door. I was a bit skeptical, but also annoyed that my mother and sister would be pulling a prank on me this late at night to get a reaction. I get out of bed to open my door and I find myself looking into an empty, dark hallway. I call out my mom's name. Next, my sister's name. Nothing. I check their rooms. There's no one to be found. Instead of calling my mom or anyone for the matter, I immediately thought, someone is in the house. I go back to my room and grab my baseball bat. I start to walk downstairs slowly, turning on every light around me. I search the living room, the kitchen. I check the closets, but there isn't anyone there. I feel relieved to go back upstairs and get into bed, but as I was checking to make sure the windows and doors are locked, I heard what sounded like an older woman cackle. I froze in my position, looking around, but see nobody. I started to hear tapping noises all around me. First tap was coming from the kitchen. Second tap came from the front door. I turned the porch light on and opened the door, and again, nobody. No one. I'm freaking out, not knowing what to do. I start to run upstairs to grab my cell phone and call the cops. But as I was walking upstairs, I heard a whisper directly in my ear. It said, "There's nowhere to escape." I screamed and swung my bat around to hopefully injure the person. There's nobody there. I run into my room and hear the woman cackle loudly, as there are loud knocks and bangs coming from outside my door. It stopped. My doorknob started to twist and turn a few times, but then it stopped again. I called my mom 100 times till she answered, and I explained later what's going on. Of course, she says it's in my head and it's all my imagination because I'm home alone. Suddenly, I decided to lay in bed and stay awake until daylight until I realized that my closet door was creaking open. Very, very slowly. I walked towards it to see if someone was in there, and I'm so glad that God is always around me, because the minute I checked the closet, there was an older woman staring back at me, and all I could see were red, bloody eyes. Her face looked terrifyingly disturbing. She opened her mouth and screeched as loud as I ever heard somebody scream, and she quickly vanished. I didn't know what I just saw or what happened, but I quietly laid in bed and waited for daylight to come. Closed my eyes and fell asleep, surprisingly. The next morning, I checked my closet to find scratch marks along my door. There were pots over the floor, and my windows were all open. Till this day, it still terrifies me and haunts me. At the end of a long day, my wife and I lay in bed together. We were staring at a wonderful Airbnb that my wife had found in Brussels. The building was ancient, but the owner had done their best to add modern touches. I reached over to turn off the lamp when we were in the hotel in total darkness. My wife dropped an all-familiar question to me. "Did you lock the door?" she asked. I hesitated. Even in the darkness, I could feel she was unimpressed with my lack of immediate response. As I saw it, I had two choices. Either get up and go all the way to the front door only to find out if it's locked or not, and rest assured in fact that I did lock the door and get some sleep. "Well, is it locked?" my wife demanded. "Yes, I don't remember me doing it," I answered quickly with some bass in my voice. "I'm sorry, I know you forget sometimes," she says with a softness in her voice. "I love you, honey. Good night." I move in and hold her tightly, kissing the back of her head, and drifted off into a slumber. I awoke from my sleep to see my wife doing something at the other side of the room. She was being quiet, but I could see her figure. "What are you doing, honey?" my croaky voice inquired. She didn't answer, but instead came and leaned over me and gave me a kiss on the lips before going back to her business. I was so tired, but I quickly drifted back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to see my wife doing the same. We smiled at one another. I attempted a smelly breath kiss, but was rebuffed. She got up and went to the bathroom. I followed. We brushed our teeth and got back into bed to check our social media. "How'd you sleep, honey?" I asked. "Better than you did," she replied. "What do you mean?" I said with a puzzled look on my face. "You were wandering around the apartment last night. I asked you to come back to bed, but you just gave me a kiss and kept going about your business," she said with not a care in the world as she looked back down at her page. "Who was in her room last night?" I quickly ran around checking our passports and money, because I knew it wasn't me or my wife. Everything was still there. I laid back in bed with a sick feeling in my stomach. Not knowing what to do, I write this down as a warning to everybody. Always make sure that your doors are locked before going to bed. Today my wife was going through her phone and found a picture of her sleeping. I lied and told her I took it thinking she looked sexy. She's not impressed. That's better than the truth. I don't know why they did it. Why they took several of our socks but no money. Why they put a small handmade doll in my luggage. All I know is I hope my wife doesn't find out the truth. This occurred in the mid-90s. I will have been 13 years old and was staying at my friend's place in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't sleep for some reason, possibly because I was sleeping on the floor as I didn't like to sleep in friends' beds. It's a thing. Anyway, it was early morning and I was getting frustrated that I couldn't sleep. I wake my friend and ask him to open the door as I need to leave. Begrudgingly, he gets up and we slowly make our way downstairs. He opens up the door. After trying to get me to stay, I insist I'll be fine as I got on my BMX, and the 3-mile ride back will tire me out. When I say I was in the middle of nowhere, I mean there was only one house that had sat empty for as long as I could remember. This being farmland, there was nothing but a rocky footpath track over 2 miles, and it was pitch black with no street lights, and I had no light sources on my BMX outside of the reflectors. Anyway, as I was enjoying the quiet, peaceful ride back home, I heard the sound of footsteps. I then see a shape a little ahead of me. As I get closer, I see it's a man. He'd obviously been drinking as he was staggering up the track, as I have done so many times since. I'm unsure if he is drunk, as he doesn't say anything as I slow down beside him. I ask if he's okay, but he suddenly stops, still swaying from side to side, as if in a trance, with his head lowered. He didn't look up, nor did he respond to me by inquiring if he was okay. Rude, I thought, and decided screw it and rode away, slowly. I look back, and he is just standing there, with that same swaying motion. He was actually looking up at me now. I had forgotten about the drunk guy as I was lost in my own thoughts. When I hear the sound of thudding feet and panting, I look back and see the guy's face finally. His eyes were manic, bloodshot, and he didn't have to say a word. He was angry for some reason, possibly on something, maybe drugs, I don't know. I'm still in shock. My legs froze as my bike slows down to a crawl. In my hesitation, I don't register as his hand reaches out to me. He grips my longish hair and almost pulls me off the bike. I instinctively pull my head back, feeling the pain as he yanks out a bit of my hair. I pedal as fast as I can, staring back at this man, sprinting at me, almost keeping up, so I pedal faster than ever, losing sight of him as I come up a steep hill that I always dread riding up frantically. Breathlessly, I am exhausted and my legs still feel lead. Finally, I get to the top, looking back for what felt like minutes, trying to catch my breath, not taking my eyes off the dark path behind me. I see a shape moving fast. He was still running after me, somehow. More relaxed now, as I'll a little more confident, as he still had to run up that steep hill. I realize how late it's getting, and I know my parents are going to be pissed that I'm coming back so early in the morning and pedal as fast as possible, because I don't want the guy tracking my route home. Exhausted and shaken, I bang on the front door harder than I needed, really, and was relieved that I had finally gotten home safe and ready to finally sleep.